So, I want to talk to y'all about some of my favorite comic book TV shows. But there's one small caveat to this list I'm about to give you. We'll find out here in a second. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. If this is your first time here, welcome. If at any point you feel compelled, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you know anytime we upload any new videos. Also, if you like anything you hear, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button, as that really helps us out. So with that said, let's get on into it. Alright, so in the spirit of Jay's video that he did a few weeks back, where he talked about his favorite Superman / Clark TV shows, I wanted to do an overall list of some of my favorite comic book shows. And the caveat that I mentioned at the beginning is there will be no Superman or Clark shows on this list because Jay's already basically done that list, and I don't want to have any overlap. I want it to be something a little bit different. Jay's got a lot of Superman stuff planned in general, so some of the lists that I might be doing here might not have Superman on it just for that particular reason, so that there's not a whole lot of, like I said, just not a whole lot of overlap between the two lists, because then it just kind of seems pointless to make two separate videos. So with that said, I've got 5. They're not necessarily like a top 5. These are just ones that I really like to ones that are probably my favorite of all time. So the first one on my list is Moon Knight. This was a series that really took me by surprise. I know absolutely nothing about Moon Knight. Not gonna lie, I still have actually yet to read a comic. But with that said, the show showed me enough of the character, and whether it was comic accurate or not, I'm not really sure. I don't think, in typical most TV show fashion, it probably wasn't. But it got me interested enough that I am for sure going to go find a Moon Knight run and check it out and just see what the character is like in actual comics. I hope we get a second season. I really do. Oscar Isaac, I think, killed it playing Moon Knight, and then the cast as a whole did really well. But it's definitely a show that if you want to see something, again, just a little different, not the typical Marvel thing, Moon Knight is definitely something to check out. It's a whole lot of fun. It's one of those where, kind of like Typhoid Mary from the Daredevil series. You kind of get to see what it's like with someone who has DID or multiple personalities and stuff like that. It's really cool. I don't want to spoil the show too much for anybody that hasn't seen it, but definitely go check it out. It's been out for probably about a year and a half now, but it's 100% worth it. Alright, so number 4, this is one that's not going to shock anybody. The Punisher, the Netflix series. Jon Bernthal absolutely kills it as Frank Castle / Punisher. It's a perfect casting. When you see how he was as Shane in The Walking Dead, you can really see that he would fit as Punisher. And I think he took a little bit of what he did as Shane and he turned it up to 11. And when he was introduced in, I think it was season 2 of Daredevil, I was like, you have to give him a solo series. And then they did that, and it was everything and more that I really wanted it to be. It is definitely not a family-friendly show. The Punisher is not a family-friendly character. Really, neither is Moon Knight. It's an amazing show. I am so glad that we are getting Jon Bernthal back in the Daredevil series. And then I just saw an article. Apparently, he might appear in Spider-Man 4, which would be really cool just to see Punisher on the big screen. So, yeah, just big things are coming for that character. And I hope Jon Bernthal plays the Punisher for years to come. But definitely check that show out. Alright, so coming in at number 3, this is a show that should have gotten more than one season, period. And that is Constantine. I love this show. And I believe it's Matt Ryan as the actor. Him as Constantine is probably one of the most perfect castings. When you look at the Hellblazer / Constantine comics, he is literally like that character coming off the page onto your screen. There he is in front of you. I don't know how that show never got a second season, and it was just one of those, like, I still am disappointed to this day at the very least, they allowed him to come in on some of the crossovers in the Arrowverse, and I believe he was on Legends of Tomorrow for a little while, and it was just great. And he also voiced Constantine in most of the DC animated movies throughout the Apocalypse War storyline that just ended, I think, 2 some odd years ago, something like that. So yeah, it was one of those. It's just, again, it's a perfect casting. You couldn't ask for somebody better to play the character. I hope he comes back and plays Constantine at some point, but you never know. I mean, the way things are with DC right now, it's hard to tell who's going to do what, but if you get a chance and you can find Constantine anywhere on a streaming platform, check it out. It will blow your mind. If you're into demons, dark magic, and stuff like that, that is 100% a show that you'll love. Number 2, definitely another show that's not going to shock anybody, The Boys. What can you say about this show? It's so good. It's so good. And the crazy part is, as graphic and nuts, bloody, whatever you name it, as the show is, if you've not read the comics, be ready. The comics are even crazier. I'm starting to go through the Boys comics myself, going through volume 1 now, and just working my way through it. And I can tell you that all around it's great, but just as the show, Anthony Starr, just chef's kiss as Homelander, and just everybody in general. It's a great show. It's funny, it's graphic, and there's a whole lot of holy crap moments that happen throughout. I think, was it 3 seasons now that we've gotten? So you definitely need to check this out if you just want to see superheroes kind of flipped upside down and done in a very, very different way. I've heard people say, and I actually kind of believe it, that if you're going to write a story about superheroes that are not DC and Marvel, bring something unique to the table, and that is 100% what The Boys are. So definitely check that out. Last but not least, here at number 1, we actually have a tie. We've got a twofer because I just, as much as I tried, I couldn't pick one over the other because maybe where I thought one show lacked, the other one had it. So yeah, with that said, it's a tie between Arrow and Daredevil. Anybody who's probably followed the channel for a while knows that we have talked about both of these shows a lot, especially me, mainly because Daredevil is my favorite superhero, and Arrow for me is special because it came along at a time in my life when I needed to just hit a reset. I had come out of a really bad low point, and the show started. Jay and I had started, basically, we moved in together in an apartment along with Jenna, and that was a show that started, and you know, it was one of those, it was my escape from reality, and it helped to just make me feel better. So that's the sentimental value of Arrow. And then, of course, the sentimental part of Daredevil is that he's my favorite hero. He has been since I was a kid. So to get that show for me was something really cool. In general, Arrow ran for 8 seasons, and while it might not have been super great for all 8 seasons, just in the middle there, they kind of lost their way, but they righted the ship, and they ended with a bang with the 8th season. The story that Stephen Amell and that cast told was amazing. They brought light to a character that, honestly, I'm surprised is not bigger, because, I mean, who doesn't love a really cool archer? You know, in my opinion. Not to mention just, it's some of the people you can bring in with DC, and what they did bring in to the show was just, it was special. Of course, what is it? Diggle. Sorry, his name went out of my head there for a second, but Diggle, that character basically was an original and creating Spartan. I've always felt that that was a really cool thing that they did with him, and I always was like, they should do an original series, either on TV or in comics, of Spartan. I think that would be really cool. And then, of course, they kind of took liberties with Oracle, like with what they did with Felicity, because Oracle is actually the original Batgirl, for anybody who may not know that. And when she got paralyzed, she became Oracle and was, you know, who talked into Batman's ears. But they took that for this show and made it Felicity, and doing it for Oliver and the team. So it was just one of those shows that it came at the right time. It was lightning in a bottle, and it was great. And could it come back and be something special again? I think so. But the way they ended it, you know, it wouldn't be what it was. So you never know. But anyways, moving along to Daredevil. That show is Marvel's best TV show of all time, bar none. I hope that the Daredevil show that they're coming back with is just as good. I know it probably won't be quite as graphic and whatnot because it probably will be on Disney Plus, but nonetheless, I hope that they at least keep the tone of the show the way it is, but mix in some of how they had Charlie Cox play the character when he did the little guest appearance on She-Hulk, because Daredevil is actually kind of smooth. He has quick comebacks. He is a ladies' man. That's definitely something that they didn't show too much in the TV series. It was a very dark and gritty version. So if they can mix the two together, I think that it'll be something, you know, special again, and I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, that's basically my list of some of my favorite TV shows of all time. I could have easily probably done 6 or 10, especially if I was including some Superman stuff, because there are probably at least 2 Superman shows, maybe 3 that I could have put on here, but the 2 for sure would have been Superman and Lois and the OG George Reeves shows from the 50s and 60s. I was a big fan of that as a kid. I had what they called Nick at Night back then, and so I was able to watch that kind of show as a kid, and I love those shows. And Superman and Lois is probably the best superhero show on TV right now. We'll see if that changes when some of these other shows come back. But yeah, so, you know, let me know, what did you think of my list? Was there anything you agreed with? Was there anything you're just like, really, that's what you put on here? What's your list? I want to hear everything down in the comments, and let's just keep it fun. With that said, I'm going to get out of your hair. Everybody have a safe rest of your week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will catch you next time. Later, everyone.